Welcome to Caregiving Club On Air. This podcast is dedicated to the millions of family caregivers who want wellness tips and self-care solutions, who seek expert advice, and who want news about healthy aging and how to create well home design in our forever homes. I'm Sherri Snelling, a corporate gerontologist, author, and educator, a TV interviewer, host, and news commentator. I'm joining you from Southern California, where our interviews and news take us all across the country to explore the many ways to help you on your caregiving journey and to lift you up here at Caregiving Club On Air. Welcome to Caregiving Club On Air. I'm your host, Sherri Snelling. And with this first episode of Season 5, we're going to kick it off with some really great insights from the recent big, huge consumer electronics show in Las Vegas that looks at age tech and caregiving technology products and gadgets with our expert guest, Debbie Dotson, who is the TV host of Let's Talk Tech with Debbie. So that's going to be really exciting. And then, of course, January is also Financial Wellness Month. So we're going to share with you some financial self-care tips for caregivers to help plan ahead and save for costs of care. And of course, we have New Year's resolutions in January, but on January 17th is Ditch New Year's Resolutions Day. Well, we're going to help you not ditch your resolutions, but really turn them into smaller, manageable steps that will help you with your self-care and other resolutions you have for this year using my Me Time Monday plan. And in caregiver wellness news, I'm going to share with you 7 joyful workouts and also a test that is about balance. And it really taps into your neuromuscular strength. And you can take this at any age to show how well you're aging. And in well home design news, we're going to talk about houseplants because January 10th is National Houseplants Awareness Day and how houseplants actually improve air care and also improve our mental health. So, with that, let's take a look at our caregiver wellness news. So, in caregiver wellness news, I want to start, of course, it's a Happy New Year to everybody. And a lot of us I know make New Year's resolutions. In fact, studies show that at least half of all American adults make a resolution at the beginning of the year. However, according to the statistics, about 80% of us abandon those resolutions by February. And what's kind of interesting is there is now an official Quitters Day for New Year's resolutions, which is the second, I think it's the second Tuesday in January. And also January 17th is Ditch Your New Year's Resolutions Day. So unfortunately, a lot of us don't always stick to those big goals that we have. And that's one of the problems. They're too big. Often we don't have a plan on how to get there, and it just becomes too challenging, too daunting, and hey, let's just, avoid it. So I want to give you some insights because this is really a lot of what Me Time Monday, the workshop and the program and plan that I put together, how it really helps you overcome ditching those New Year's resolutions. And we're going to help you become a New Year's resolutionary, which is what I call it in my book. And that is, how do you break down what you really want to achieve into smaller steps and also make sure you have some balance in your life, which brings us the most joy. By the way, when we have balance, we are happier. And how do you do that? So I wrote a blog, and I'm going to have a link to that on our episode guide page. But also, I wanted to just share that, there's some videos that I've started putting together that are based on a lot of the research and a lot of the tips from my book, Me Time Monday. And we're calling them Self Care in 7 Minutes because that's really the goal. What are the things that you can do in 7 minutes or less? And you don't have to do them daily, you could do it weekly, but making sure that you're always kind of paying attention to what have I done for myself this week, even if it's just some really small little thing. And then what that does is that sends a dopamine release to your brain that you've accomplished something. You start to feel like you have a little bit more control over your life again, even though it might be overwhelmed and, totally disrupted by caregiving, by a lot of other issues and challenges that are going on in life. What are those small little steps that you can take every week? Or if you can, every day that bring that balance back to you, that gives you again that sense of happiness and more control. So I've got those videos. I started doing them September. There's quite a few of them on our YouTube channel. We'll have some links. But the one that I did most recently was on how you can achieve these New Year's resolutions, become a New Year's resolutionary, and what are some of the ways that you can do that. And it's really about exercising our bodies and our brains. We're going to have the latest links to those on the episode guide page. Now, something else that falls into this kind of physical wellness and even a little bit of intellectual wellness, because we're going to talk about brain health. There's a new test that I just came across, which is really interesting, and I'm going to give it to you here. And then you can try this at home, but it's for anybody of any age, and it's a neuromuscular test. And it is supposed to be this research was done at the Mayo Clinic, and it's supposed to really show the best information on how well you're aging, which I thought was really fascinating. So it's a balance test, and I loved it and I really honed in on it because, of course, balance is my mantra. That is a lot of what I write about. How do you find better balance in your life? Well, this is physical balance. And so this test the research was just recently published in one of the evidence-based peer-reviewed journals by the Mayo Clinic researchers. And they did test it among people who were over the age of 50, but if you're under that age, you can do this as well, just to show where you're at. And I'm going to include the chart that breaks down age groups that show where you should fit on this. You should be doing at least this number or better. And here's what you do. You stand on one leg, and then the other leg is propped against your thigh or calf, kind of like a tree pose in yoga, right? And you hold it for 30 seconds or longer. Now, that sounds pretty simple, but I have to tell you, I tried this. And at first, I got extremely frightened because I was really wobbly and, my foot was going to want to come down after 10 seconds or whatever. Anyway, when I really concentrated and I breathed, I did my breathing and I calmed myself down a little bit, then I was able, thankfully, to achieve it for my age group and to do it for 30 seconds at least. But you want to keep your eyes wide open. This is really interesting because what the researchers found is that when you open your eyes, you are more present with your internal strength. Your brain is engaged with five senses that is keeping you strong. When you close your eyes, you kind of start to waver a little bit because you're not really focused on anything. So you want to keep your eyes wide open and looking ahead, not down or to the side. And as I said, 30 seconds for people who are 50 or older is the norm. If you're under that, then there could be some issues with your muscular strength or your brain health. So it's a little bit of an indicator, just something that you can do to test yourself and see where you come out. And also then if you want to improve your balance, certainly what we know is that walking certainly helps because it's not only an aerobic exercise, but it also helps build, that muscle strength. And if you do it in nature, it's actually the green exercise movement now is so much more potent, if you will, in terms of, walking on a treadmill inside for 30 minutes. Well, the equivalent would be walking in nature for 10 minutes. That's where we get you back to that kind of 7 minutes, around 7 minutes. If you can spend just a few minutes in nature, you're actually going to, again, you're going to engage your senses and you're going to build that muscle strength. And it's part of that brain strength as your brain, does control your muscles. And the other thing that you can do is water exercises. I remember a story about it was actually my second cousin. So this would have been my cousin to my grandmother, or first cousins two times removed. Sorry, first cousin two times removed. I got to get my genealogy straight. And he was in his 80s and he was taking water aerobics classes. And I thought, how cool is that? But now I say, wow, that was really smart because he was very strong and very had a lot of vigor and vitality well into his 80s. And I think that had probably a lot to do with it. So anyway, you can also check out our podcast episode from previous episodes with Harry Monkey, and he is with Brain HQ, the CEO actually of Brain HQ. He talked a lot on that episode about how to exercise your brain. So that's season 2, episode 14. We're going to have a link to that on our episode guide page as well. So now let's turn to January Financial Wellness Month. And there was a new study that just came out about Gen X. Now, we know that the Gen Xers, that generation is really in the heart of the sandwich generation, which means you've got both, children either under the age of 18 or maybe they're just over 18 back from college. You're still taking care of them financially. And you also have older parents or in laws or grandparents you're caring for. And this study showed, and then by the way, the oldest Gen Xers now are turning 60, which is pretty amazing. I know we're all getting a little older here. And it reported that almost one in three, 27%, uh, only 27% reported good financial health. So there's obviously there's a lot of struggle that's going on with the Gen X generation, and some of it has to do, I think, with the fact that there's more sandwich generation caregivers in that group. Now, Pew Research showed 23% of all U.S. adults are in the sandwich generation and helping again younger and older generations financially. So, a couple of things I want to give to you, and I'm going to have the links on the episode guide page. First of all, understanding the costs of long term care which come out of pocket. They aren't covered by Medicare. So this is where you or your loved one is going to live later in life. And it has everything from home care help and assistance and home health all the way through assisted living, memory care, or nursing home. And it breaks down the costs of those state by state and also gives you a national average. And that comes from Genworth's cost of care survey. It's a really great resource to just educate yourself about what are the costs of care, how are they going up, of course, every year. They publish it annually in March. And then also, there's something called filial responsibility laws. Now, you may have heard of these before, and they're a little frightening when you dig into it because they were, many of them were put on the books in the late 1700s and early 1800s when the country was just really getting going. And so a lot of them are in the states. I think it's about 17 states in the union that have these laws on the books from many, many years ago, but that still apply. And what it means is adult children are obligated by law to cover and pay for the care of older parents. So if your older parent was not able to pay and they were in a nursing home, if you're in a certain state, it gives that state and that nursing home the ability to turn to you as the child and say, we need payment on this. And again, that can be really daunting and frightening depending on your family situation and what's going on. But we're going to get an elder law attorney on this podcast in a couple of months. I'm lining somebody up now who's really going to dig into this for us. But I wanted you to be aware of that because if you live in states like Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, North Carolina, South Carolina, I think those are some of the states that still have these laws on the books. Now, when it comes to financial self care for caregivers, which I call it financial wellness and financial self care in my book, Me Time Monday. There's something called creating your own personal joy economy. That was a little word I coined. I actually, I did see it somewhere. I will say I didn't come up with it all on my own. I think it came from maybe McKinsey research or something. But the joy economy is what we have control over. We don't have control over the general economy, as we all well know, with the prices that keep rising and inflation and all that, but we do have control over our own happiness and our own joy. And so the joy economy is as vital as our savings account because even though we might be financially well, we still might not be emotionally well. And that's where my Me Time Bunny book breaks down your life into those seven elements, and finding balance in all seven elements is what brings you the ultimate happiness and health in life. So that joy economy should be part of your health and happiness stock portfolio. And I'm going to have a link to an article I wrote that tells you a little bit more about this. And again, it goes back to the principles of Me Time Monday, how to find that balance. And then one last tip, couple more tips I wanted to share with you quickly. One is that the estate taxes are going to increase in 2026. So this is the last year to plan ahead. Now, what that means is the federal exemption amounts under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 are scheduled to sunset at the end of 2025, and that decreasing on January 1, 2026 to a base amount of $5 million plus an inflation adjustment. Now, what that means is that when your loved one passes away, and if there's going to be what we call the death tax, right? The estate tax, that is going to increase for the descendants, for the inheritors of that estate, because they're lowering the threshold. It used to be, and I think right now, don't quote me on this, but I think it's around 11 or $12 million. So if you pass away and that's what your estate is worth, once it's over that amount, then you're going to receive, a higher tax. But now they're going to lower it. So now many, many more people are going to get caught into this net of paying those taxes. It's just something to be aware of. And it comes back to really understanding what your loved one's savings and estate kind of looks like as they get older, because some of these things might have certain implications for you. And it's a great, something great that you want to definitely talk to if you have a financial advisor, or if you don't, maybe just talk to somebody who does financial advising and get some insights on that. And then two last quick things I want to share on this whole topic of financial wellness. I was really honored because I was on a recent podcast with a dear friend of mine, Bill Capel, and he is now with Trade PMR, which is kind of an association group for financial advisors, and he does a synergized podcast. So I was on the podcast with him and his co-host Ryan Neal, and we talked about Gen C, Generation Caregiver, and financial wellness tips from my book, Me Time Monday. So I really loved that. It was a really fun conversation, really great insights for you too. So I'm going to have a link to that on the episode guide page. And then another dear friend, John Migliaccio, and then Neil Cutler, who, interestingly enough, is not only a dear friend, but he was my professor back at USC when I was an undergrad. So we've known each other for many, many years. They asked me and invited me to write a guest column for the Journal of Financial Services Professionals. And again, it was on this topic of Gen C, Generation Caregiver. And it was all about what financial advisors and wealth advisors need to know about caregiving so they can help optimize the financial planning for their clients. So I was really honored to be involved in those kind of financial wellness areas. We'll have links to that on the episode guide page. And then finally, I just want to do a shout out to some previous episodes on financial wellness that you may want to check out. Amanda Stahl of Raymond James Financial Advisors talked to us about how to talk to a financial advisor and find a good financial advisor and what you should ask them, particularly about caregiving. That was season 4, episode 35. Liz Lowy of EverSafe was on season 2, episode 13, and she talked to us about grandparent scams, huge financial impact, of course, to older adults and to family caregivers if you get caught up in that. So you may want to listen to that. It was really interesting and what to look out for. Cynthia Hutchins, a fellow financial gerontology colleague who works at Bank of America, she was on season 3, episode 20, and she talked about how caregivers can better navigate cost of care and get help from employers. That was really interesting. And of course, she continues to do a lot of great research in the workplace area of financial wellness for caregivers. They just came out with a recent report on, if you have dementia and you're still at work, or if you're a caregiver of someone with dementia and you're at work, what to think about in terms of working with your employer on, getting some financial education and help. And then finally, the wonderful Cindy Hunsel of Wiser, which is the Women's Institute for a Secure Retirement. Cindy has always been at the forefront of helping older women really plan ahead for their retirement savings and long-term care savings and caregiving. And her wonderful organization has a whole toolbox and checklists and things to think about and guidance. And it's the Caregiver Financial Wellness tools, and you can find that on her website. We'll have a link, but she was from season 2, episode 1, but the information is still fantastic and really good, so I encourage you to check that out. Now, when it comes to investments in older parents, our next guest is the expert on what we call age tech, which are products that are specifically designed for older adults, and also caregiving tech. So, different apps and gadgets that can help caregivers care for their older loved ones. And that is Debbie Dotson, who is the TV host of a program called Let's Talk Tech with Debbie, which is shown in the Villages community and also on public access television. She's also a professor on cybersecurity. And Debbie had me on her show last fall. So I wanted to have her come on my show, but she is the guru on all this. And we just had this big, huge consumer electronics show in Las Vegas. She's going to tell you how big it is. But she really focused on, okay, what are the trends I'm seeing? What are the gadgets I really like that are going to help caregivers care for older adults? And so she's going to walk us through all of those really great insights. So here is my interview with Debbie Dotson. So We're so excited because this is our first podcast of our 5th season. I can't believe that we've been doing this for 5 years. And I have a very special guest today. It's the beginning of the year. We know we're all looking, we've kind of had come out of all of the holidays and the gift giving, but now we get to look forward to what's next. And my guest today is an expert, Debbie Dotson, and she is a professor. She's also a coach on different things in aid tech. She is an expert on cybersecurity, which is really interesting. And she's also the host of Let's Talk Tech with Debbie, which appears on local access cable televisions in Fresno, but also on Village TV here in Southern California in my area. So, Debbie, I'm thrilled to have you on today. Tell us all the latest stuff that's out there.
Well, thank you, Sherri, for having me. I'm so excited. Anytime I see technology, my antenna go up and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, well, I have to tell the audience, I was so grateful. You reached out to me last year and asked me to be on your show for Village TV, and we had a really great discussion. And so you were the first person that popped into my head when I knew CES was coming up, and I knew this is kind of your area of expertise. So we're just thrilled to have you tell us what are the latest trends and things that are out there that can help older adults who are both active, but also for us family caregivers who are helping to care for our older loved ones. But first question always is, where are we talking to you from today?
I'm actually sitting in my home office in Fresno, California today, I've been focusing more time up here than I spend an extraordinary amount of time in Orange County, but I'm at home.
Right, that's your home base. Well, and before we launch into everything, just quickly tell us a little bit about your background because you've really been, an expert in this for many, many years.
Yeah, I worked in healthcare for 16 years, and at an executive administration level in a clinical situation, and then I decided to go to a totally different realm and got into technology. So I've been working in different areas of technology, mostly instructional technology, for almost 20 years now. So it's been quite the road. People always say, well, you're such a tech person. I'm really not like you would think. I have to learn things. It takes me time to learn, but the thing that differentiates me is that I will learn something. And if somebody asks me a question and I don't know what it is, I'll go out and learn it.
Well, and I love all of your videos, and we're going to make sure we have links on our episode guide page to all the ways that our listeners can watch you and learn more about stuff you do. But you always really explain things so well. I think sometimes, it's just hard for us to figure out, like, okay, what does this mean? How does this work? And all that stuff. But, as I mentioned at the beginning of the year, CES, the big, huge consumer electronics show, we had Steve Ewell on our podcast, I think it was a year ago, to give us a preview of CES, but it's a huge show that focuses on all the latest tech that's coming and all the things that we should be thinking about. And age tech has really taken on a big spotlight at the show. I know ARP has a huge booth now, and the Age Tech Collaborative from ARP has a big presence there. But tell us what you're seeing in terms of the big trends and, some of the innovative products that are coming out of all of this stuff.
Well, there were 4,500 booths and 140,000 people this year at CES.
Wow.
So if you just think about that, but they had things from, autonomous vehicles, AI, mattresses, pet care, beauty, sustainability items. So, it's spread out over many areas of Las Vegas, and the Age Tech Collaborative, which is something AARP spearheaded a few years ago, that tries to put all the more aging in place and things that have to do with aging in one location, which makes it a little bit easier. But interestingly enough for me, I find things outside of that as well that I feel would be appropriate. And so I found a lot of really great things, a lot of cognitive function tools that had to do with like VR headsets. And I'm going to talk about some of the specifics, but a lot about, the social emotional part, the isolation that some seniors, and so robotic animals, different things that interact at home. There's those things just to improve our lives as we age. I heard a startling statistic this morning, that in the next 40 years, the cases of dementia are going to double.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you know, everything that's out there that can improve and help or keep us, you know, you talk a lot about brain health. So, you know, there's a lot of products that help there. You know, it would take me, well, last year when I did the CES show for my show, it was 4 episodes. So today I have, you know, I can
We're
only
going to ask you to
condense.
squeeze it all in. I know in just a few minutes, which is so tough. You know, and you mentioned the Alzheimer's and dementia. And we do know that the prevalence and the cases are increasing as we're living longer. And everybody, I think, is really now in tune with not just, okay, I might have to care for someone with dementia or Alzheimer's, but also our own brain health, as you kind of mentioned. So I want to kind
Mhm.
of jump into, you had some favorites on your list that you mentioned to
Right.
me. We're going to try to get through all of them. But I wanted to start with the toothbrush because you were just saying it's probably at
Oh,
the top of your list.
yeah, so the toothbrush was later on in this, but I'll go there now. The toothbrush is a new innovation, and it looks like a standard. You'll show a picture, but it looks like a standard electric toothbrush, but instead it looks like a mouthpiece, like a mouth guard, and it has brushes in it. And so you hold it and you put it into your mouth, 10 seconds on the top, turn it over, 10 seconds on the bottom. And so in 20 seconds, you get a full toothbrushing. And, you know, just from people who have ambulatory problem, not ambulatory, but, you know, with their
Arthritis,
hands and
maybe.
things, and,
Yeah.
you know, being
Yeah.
able just to hold it in place and have it, and rather than brushing your teeth, or caregivers who are, you know, trying to brush people's, you know, teeth as they're giving their care. So I was just fascinated by that, and I am so hopeful that they will send me one to show on my show in an upcoming episode. But I'd love to give it a try. But they've got FDA backing. They've got a lot of stuff. So it's new. You know, you can't go out and buy it yet. But sometime this
That's
year you'll be
coming.
able to buy it.
Yeah. This is a preview of things to come.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right, right. And that's the thing. Some of the things I'm going to talk about are available now, and some will be available either later this year. Last year, when I went, I saw a lot of things that are in the innovator section that are finally coming. So it's taking time. I mean, obviously, time and money, right?
Right.
Um, but I think from, like, if we roll back a little to the cognitive side, there was a therapy item that was from a South Korean company called EYAS. EYAS, and it was a digital therapy platform. So it's more of a software, but they use a headset. And so it helps patients with mild cognitive impairment, and even, you know, younger people with ADHD, and it uses a proprietary tech to track your eye movement,
Hmm.
and your progress as you improve. And then it runs through this therapy games and helps them with brain function. I found that to be quite interesting, and cutting edge with cognitive therapy.
So does that
You
kind of
know,
fit into what we're calling kind of the gamification of health, where we're kind of fusing
a
entertainment and
little
health
bit, but
benefits?
like
Okay.
pre-dementia. So like you know how you talk about brain, and we looked at brain games when you were on my show. This
Sure.
is kind of along that same line, but it would be more administrated in a clinical setting rather than it's not really like a home use. Whereas the brain games and the online tools, those are more, you know, anybody can use them type of thing.
Sure.
Um, Another thing I saw that was really interesting was this product called Lucid by Resonance RX, and it's a proprietary therapeutic AI engine, and it uses a radio style stream of music to support mental well-being. So they have audio streams that can be layered, so they can have beat simulation and help with relaxation. So they're using, and it also has a remote therapeutic component. So a home-based person or homebound person could use this, and it could transmit to whoever's providing their cognitive therapy. So you have cognitive, behavioral, emotional assessments that can help their provider track and monitor that progress. I've found that. So it's called Lucid AI.
Okay.
And that was really cool. So that's what and there were a lot of products like that. Okay, so
Sure.
between the cognitive games, VR games, AI, lots of things with the cognitive side of things. But then I saw a lot of things that were like for your vision and hearing, and so there were several standouts in the visual section to me. And, I have bad eyes. And I have family members with macular degeneration. So anytime I see things that are going to improve a patient's life or a person's life with regards to their vision, because we all rely so much on our vision.
Yeah.
There's a company called Lumen, and there's more than one Lumen. This is a European company that's a research startup. They came from a family where a lot of their members have disabilities, and so they started looking at assistive technology. They have glasses that replicate the features of a guide dog. So
Interesting.
that means
Okay.
you wouldn't need a seeing eye dog. Now that there's, that's kind of for me, that's a double-edged sword. And I'll tell you why. I feel like, a guide dog provides that social interaction, right? And
Right.
comfort to a person. And last year I saw a device that actually was like a robotic thing that you could use for your, with for visual help. But this one is, they make guide dog. They're saying, it's a $500 million training cost, and there's only 2,000 guide dogs that they can train per year.
Okay.
So, with all the visually impaired, this is like something they could use if they are waiting for their guide dog, or
Okay.
for whatever reason they can't have a guide dog. This simulates having a guide dog with a headset. And it's a glasses based item. So you would wear it. And I thought it uses something like autonomous cars.
Okay.
So the same
So
kind of
is it
thing like
telling you like there's a curve or how does it work exactly? I'm
yeah,
curious.
it's exactly that. So it uses it works on the autonomous driving AI, but it doesn't require internet connectivity or pre-mapping. So it tells them, there's a curb, there's a light, there's whatever. Just imagine one of those Waymo cars sitting in the back of one of those Waymo cars, and you know how it's able to drive and stop at lights and stop for people. The glasses are doing the same thing, and they're telling you.
Right. Well, and I
So
want to just interject really quickly. I have a question on that, and I know you probably have some more on your list. I don't want to interrupt that, but some of the self driving cars, of course, we've seen some of the stuff where there was something lately on the news where the guy got caught in the back and couldn't get this car to stop, whatever, and it
right,
kept making circles in the parking lot. I mean, obviously, the technology is still being tweaked and perfected. Do you have any concerns over that when we start getting into things like these
sure.
eyeglasses for your people? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I definitely would say that until I went freely wearing them, as a blind person, I would want to really make sure that they worked. I
Right.
will say that, we're talking about technology. Technology glitches. So nothing is ever going to be foolproof when it comes to technology. But I will say that the actual technologies have improved. So yes, the guy did get stuck in the back of the car, but I feel like in the sense of Lumen, they're testing it. Again, that's one of those it's coming type of things. So I think
Okay.
they'll probably do a wide scale look at everything before that. But
Right.
yeah, they could fail, and
And
that
it's
does concern me. But I also know that if it's the difference between having give that person some freedom that they might not have had without it, then to me it
Yeah,
outweighs the pros and the cons. It's the pros and the cons.
definitely that independence, that mobility, you're absolutely right. And it is the future. Let's face it, right? It is.
Yeah.
It may not be perfect today, but it's coming. It's what we're
It's
going to all
coming,
do.
and it may never be 100% perfect, but nothing is.
Right.
The other thing I saw was, and this was the macular degeneration in diabetic retinopathy. It was called eSight Go, and they're also new in 2025. They're a digital low vision assistive device, and they will help with people who have, central vision loss, like macular degeneration. And so, it's a high definition camera, and it captures continuous video footage. So the footage gets optimized and enhanced before it comes on the glasses themselves.
Okay.
And you can have prescription lenses as well. So if you're, and I think about my aunt, because she has a device that's similar to this, but it's not wearable. She gets her mail and she has a camera, like a document camera, that she can use, and it puts it on screen so that she can read it.
Okay.
This is something she could now wear all the time.
Okay.
And they're lightweight glasses. They are worn, you can wear them all day. They have built-in controls, and they have a battery pack that lasts about 3 hours right now. So hopefully in the future, they would extend. But
Sure.
when I saw that, I was like, oh, can I get a pair,
Right.
for her to try?
Right.
And then the other thing was, there was another company called Solid Vision, and they claim to have the first true vision correction for people that have macular degeneration. And then theirs worked in an interesting way too. They had it like a lens that had a fly's eye, so it projects inside the glasses multiple images, so that the places where their retina isn't damaged, it would clear it up for them. So the brain would construct the 3D image by looking at these glasses. I know that's a little complicated, but it brings the multiple images into a single field image, which,
Okay.
if that works, makes it feel like normal in focus sights, which is just
Wow.
fabulous. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And
The fact that we can address some of these things, oh my gosh, so great. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
And then, I went to the ears, because hearing is a big issue as you age, right?
Yep. Yep.
And there are so many out there. I picked one. I picked one because one of the new things that's coming is not just for people with hearing issues, but AI translation that you can wear in your ears when you travel. And
Okay.
I didn't mention earlier, but I also do travel show on senior travel.
That's right.
And so for me, when I see this, I got perked up, because they're Bluetooth hearing aids that come with a smart app, and they have volume adjusting, AI translation. They have tinnitus masking, which for me, I have ringing ears. If that masks my ringing ears, I would be so grateful. It has telephone speech enhancement. And then this translation now through, so you can be talking to someone in a totally different language and it's translating for you.
Oh my gosh. So it's like you're at the UN, right? Listening to everybody talking. You're being, it's being translated for you. That's really cool. I
Isn't
love
that cool?
that.
And
Yeah.
it's got, it'll offer this global communication and transcend language barriers. And there's more than just this particular company. Again, I picked one, but there's multiple options out there. But I think there are just headphones that are simply AI translators. So if you don't have a hearing issue, that's available. They all work through an app though, so it's not like they're independent of your phone. So
Sure.
I have had that come up before, where people are telling me, well, how does it just translate in the device? No, it needs a computerized and an internet to
You
make
need that
translation.
app. Yeah.
Yeah, like almost like Google Translate, but it might not be Google Translate.
Right, right, exactly. Well, this all sounds great. I mean, so much insight, and I know that's just the tip of the iceberg. Debbie, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, very often with a lot of these great innovations, the companies are either selling them themselves on their own website. I know some of them do, get picked up by the Best Buys of the world and other places, but sometimes they're really hard to find. What's your suggestion to people? I mean, it's just average family caregivers, people out there caring for an older loved one. We don't see they're not advertising. We don't hear
Right.
about it. You and I talk about it in our little circles and stuff, but people find out about these things, and then where can they go to buy them?
Right. So that's a great question. Some of them come on Amazon. Most of them, once they come to market, will come on Amazon. Not all of them. A lot of them will sell direct in the beginning, direct to consumer type of thing on the internet. If you consider like a Shark Tank thing where they come on and they're like, how do I get out there? That's the question you just asked me.
Right.
But it really boils down to research. What I do when I actually I will be having episodes where I'm going to talk about these in more depth. I will do my best at the end of my show to have a link to where you can go to buy
Right.
the ones that I'm talking about. But yeah, in fact, the Best Buys of the world are not always going to be where you're finding it. And
I know, and we'd
I
like to
hate
have
to
them on the show, but it's like, come on.
Yeah, I hate to promote Amazon, but I mean it right now that is your place to get things.
Yeah.
But a lot of these that I'm talking about now, right now, because they're not, typically necessarily out for sale, it may be months before you can actually purchase one.
Sure.
Although one of the things that I saw, and I don't remember which one I was going to talk about, it was very inexpensive, I thought, in comparison. Oh, it's a a cap that goes on your diabetes insulin pen that allows it to keep the temperature, because I guess temperature extremes with insulin is a problem.
Sure.
So this is called the ViviCap, and it was about $114.
Right.
And it goes right on your insulin pen to keep it secure, and it also monitors what it gives you. So it's got you have a hassle-free insulin protection and management.
Okay.
It's like a little cap that talks to the app. So I thought that was pretty cool. A couple of fun things that I saw. Well, one that was interesting, and I know we're almost out of time. CarePod is a coffee maker that takes the air and turns it into water for the coffee.
Oh, wow.
That was cool. And then another company called Wonder, which has Bird Buddy. This was awesome. Bird Buddy has a smart bird feeder, a smart hummingbird feeder, and a smart bird bath. And the camera is there, so you can watch the birds on your phone or your mobile device. So when the
Oh,
birds come up, and hummingbirds, I'm a hummingbird lover, and I want one. I'm going to make sure I go out of my way to get the interactive hummingbird feeder with the
I
camera so
love
I can
that.
watch them. Isn't that
Yeah.
great?
Right, buddy. I love that. That is great. We're gonna have to definitely. We'll have photos of these. I know you're gonna share some of
Yeah.
your photos and things with us, which is really great. You know, so we were talking about kind of where we find things, and again, what do we know that we don't know, right? How do we learn about these things? Obviously, we're gonna have links to your show because you're one of the gurus out there that people should check. They should look at
Right.
your segments and things and find out more about some of these stuff. Couple just quick questions before we have to go, but
Sure.
any companies that stand out in your mind or retailers that stand out who do a really good job at customer service? So often the customer service is either just a chat, bot or whatever. People like sometimes to talk to someone, but they also have questions that, when we're not a digital native and we're older, we need to kind of maybe be walked through some stuff. What are your recommendations for helping older adults to really understand this technology, but also get good customer service?
Well, I think the company-wide customer service and I hate to say this, is not good. But I did meet a company last year, and I actually had her on my show. It's called the Smarter Service. It's a concierge service for technology. And
Okay.
they have varying rates of monthly subscriptions. But they're there to help you with technology. So, like, let's say you bought one of these things, or you told them that you wanted to buy something, they would go and they would help you find it, learn it, use it. And they actually are a lot of senior communities have now instituted it's called the Smarter Service. A lot of companies have, like resident facilities have them now. And they're growing. They're relatively new company, but I love what they have to offer because they hire people who understand a mature adult who may not be tech savvy and can really help. And so that makes a difference to me.
Oh, I
But
love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that, and they're
That's
the
a
ones
gold
that,
mine.
and that's, that they stand out to me because that's a service that's not readily available. And the other thing I would say is Senior Planet, which is part of AARP. They have regular classes every single day, and they also have a lot of groups where you can post questions. Like,
Okay.
somebody was asking about something about AI the other day on one of the groups. And these are free. These, AARP things online are all free.
Right.
I'm actually doing a presentation next month for them online again. I've done several already. I'm going to talk about using AI tools and apps for travel, but
Cool.
they have everything. So I would say that those are the two that stand out to me.
Okay.
There are other things online, questions and answers, but a lot of times people, if they're not tech savvy, they don't know how to go online and find the groups that can answer their questions.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. And I'll just do a quick shout out to, we've had Lawrence Kosick from, he's founder of Get Set Up, which is an
mhm.
online learning platform. I know they do a lot of different classes on technology for adults, 50 plus, and you can take one of those classes. So sometimes it might be a little bit more generic. It's not specific to a certain product, but at least they
Right.
can kind of guide you and help you through stuff like that, which is really great. I know we're coming close on our time. I wanted to just also ask you quickly that, AI, right? We all talk about artificial intelligence. It's everywhere. I feel like there's nothing now that doesn't really incorporate some kind of AI. And I
Right.
saw a really interesting news story. I think it was on CNN, and they were talking about the fact that, everybody's integrating AI into whatever they're doing, but consumers are a little bit like, wait a minute. And I think it's obviously a trust, a privacy issue, some other stuff. What are your thoughts on AI? Good, bad, both? What are you thinking?
I'm probably going to say something that some people may disagree with, but I love AI.
Okay.
And I use it every day. I use it
Okay.
every day in a multitude of ways. It is so wonderful for organizing your thoughts, research. There, in the counterpoint about privacy. At
Right.
this day and age, there's nothing private. Okay. You're your best firewall, keeping your own information, making sure your bank accounts are secure, not clicking on links, avoiding, doing the things to avoid scams. That's the only way to protect yourself. But your privacy and what you do, your data is currency in cyberspace.
Yeah. I mean, if
And
you use
so
a credit card, they're tracking where you're going and what you're
everything,
doing, right? Yeah.
every single thing, your phone is listening. And there's not much you can do about it unless, even I used to say you could go live in the mountains and never log in, and you can really, nowadays you can't even do that. Everybody has a digital footprint. So that would be my thing is AI is here. Understand it, educate yourself about what AI does. It's a generative learning. It's machine learning. It learns from what you do. It takes its steps from what you ask it, and it grows and learns about you. For example, I use chat gpt almost every day. Chat gpt now knows when I ask it a question, it gives me an answer that is specific to me, because it knows me now. it kind of knows my habits, and or if it'll give me an answer and I'll say, no, that's not what I wanted. How about this? It learns from that. Is it
Right.
scary? It's scary, but if you think about back in the day when we saw the Jetsons in the cartoon, do you know
Right.
all the things on the Jetsons are pretty much, they're already old school
I
now.
and Star Trek too. Somebody told
Yeah.
me that everything that appeared in Star Trek we're pretty much using in our lives today.
Except we can't just teleport yet, but
Yeah,
it's coming.
it's coming.
But you know, there was a thing last year I saw at CES, a hologram machine. But yeah, I mean, I feel like education is your best defense against fear.
Yeah. Well,
And
and I love what you said, AI will it'll personalize it to you. So often we're up against a one size fits all mentality or information, and we really want it to be customized, right, for us. So I guess it's a call, you get the personalization, that's a benefit. You protect your
right,
own privacy issues, that's what you were
mhm.
saying. You have to be in, but
You have to
it's something
be.
that can help. Yeah,
Yeah, it's got more benefit than harm.
than
Maybe
downside.
that will
Yeah.
change at some point. You know, I mean, I know that the people who have created a lot of these AI tools like ChatGPT or Google Gemini, I know that they are, you know, they're constantly talking about the ethical side of things. Um, where does it stop? I don't know. But I do know that right now, AI on face value is very beneficial to many people.
Right.
And
Well,
and
and in
so
healthcare, again, it's
mhm,
really it is giving more of that personalized information, helping us get more precise, I think, in diagnosing and all kinds of things, which is great.
right.
The other night I was flipping through some channels and I happened to catch that scene from 2001: Space Odyssey where Hal takes over, and big fear for all of us who are a little older, right?
Right. And that's kind of like that. I mean, there was recently, and I want to say it was Oprah Winfrey did a show on AI, um, the good, bad, and ugly. You know, I do think if people want to watch that, you know, I'm sure it's on YouTube or one of the streamings now. But you know, I watched it, and I thought what they presented was good.
Yeah,
It talked about, you know, it's coming, how to, you know, the fear of it. Yeah, there are downsides to everything, but I think you just have to use it. And my hope is always that it's going to be used for good rather than evil.
right.
That there are, you know, people are using AI though. The granny scam. I just, in fact, my current episode is that's coming in February is, you know, I show AI Granny, where she actually talks to the scammers on the phone, and she'll just keep them going for like an hour, and
Oh, I
that's
love that.
all. It's all AI. She
So
just
you
talks
can
about her
mess with
cat.
the scammers. That is something I could get behind,
Yeah,
definitely.
and that was
Well,
pretty fun.
Debbie, we can talk to you for a whole nother hour. There's so much out there, but we're going to have a lot of links to all of your information where people can watch you and learn a lot more. And we'll have you back too to talk about the travel side of what you do
Oh,
because that's
sure.
fascinating. But tell us, where people can find your information or watch you and all those great things.
So I'm on Instagram and YouTube under the @ symbol Let's Talk Tech 949. I have a Facebook page, Let's Talk Tech. I don't have a website, but on my travel website, I have a page for some Let's Talk Tech stuff. But primarily, and then Village Television, they post all of my shows. You know, they produce for me, so that they're the first point. And then, you know, now I'm on CMAC. So really I'm kind of all over the place. I have my Gmail for Talk Tech is talktech949 @gmail, and I'm happy for people to send me questions and I'll do my best to answer them. You know, I do this all as a volunteer. So, you know, that's why you know, why don't I have a website? Well, a website's a lot of work and a lot of money.
It is.
And so I do mostly all these things. I either post I'll post a link to my show on my Facebook page, or if I hear
right?
about something, I put tech tips on my Facebook
But
page if
we'll
something
have all
important.
of those links to you. And I just, again, Debbie, before we get cut off, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on to tell us what's the latest in all these tech trends. It's been great.
Well, thank you, Sherri. I really had fun, and it went so fast.
It did. It did. We'll do it again. I promise. So many wonderful and great insights from Debbie. We're just so grateful to have her on this episode to share all of those age tech and caregiving tech solutions for us. And, as Debbie may have mentioned, we have images from her. So we're going to include those on the episode guide page. So if you're listening to us on audio podcast, you can go to that page and you can actually see what these products look like. We'll have links to where you can buy them if they are available. And then if you're watching us on our YouTube channel, which is our video version of this podcast, then we'll also include those images in the video. So as you're listening, you're also going to be able to see those wonderful images from Debbie. And we just, again, are really grateful to have her on this episode to kick off our wonderful season 5. Now let's turn to well home design news. And, in my 7 wellness elements of life that I talk about in my book, Me Time Monday, environmental wellness is a really big one. And I think one that we don't often think about. When we think about environmental wellness, we think about saving the environment, but this is a little different. This is about the environmental wellness of our spaces. So, whether it's in our homes, whether it's in our offices, or maybe even in our neighborhoods, what are the things that are found in nature that are going to help us heal, that are going to help us be happier? We know that there's that connection between the brain and nature. And how do we manage that best? So, as I mentioned up front, January 10th is National Houseplants Awareness Day because we have a day for everything now. And I came across that last year when I actually interviewed Sean Hallam, who is the CEO of Instant Jungle. And if you guys want to check out that episode, we talk all about houseplants and nature and a lot of the healing properties of plants and what you should think about. And that was our first episode on season 4, episode 34. So we'll have a link to that on the by uh, episode guide page. But the answer to how many houseplants do you need to improve the air care quality in your home is 5. And there are some specific plants that are better than others at pulling out those toxins. We have 40 pounds of toxins in our air in our homes, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. And so houseplants can really help. And that is not pseudoscience. That is actually backed by a study that was done by NASA back, I think it was in the 80s or 90s. And they did a whole study about bringing in nature and having that oxygenation that you can get not only from the plants, but also pulling out certain toxins like benzenes and formaldehydes and stuff that reside in our homes, which I think is pretty fascinating. So I created a self-care in 7 minutes video, which is kind of my new thing. As you guys know, we do a new video every week that we share on our YouTube channel. And it relates not just to air care, but also something called solastalgia. Now, this is a new term that's being used in psychology, and it has to do with the environment. And we see solastalgia in older adults who may be living in a community or a neighborhood which now is being, overbuilt. Like you have maybe a smaller home and there's all these really huge, larger homes around it. Maybe there's a strip mall, maybe there's industrial buildings, all kinds of things. So the neighborhood has really changed from where maybe they moved in the 50s or 60s or 70s or 80s. And it brings about this kind of sadness, this mental health issue of feeling lonely and feeling like change is not happy in your life, even when you're still living in your home. Now, with the recent Southern California wildfires. And for many of you, I live in Southern California. I had many, many friends affected. My heart goes out to everybody who has had their lives completely upturned and disrupted by these fires and have been displaced. And, SoCalStrong, stay strong, everybody. We're here to help you. And by the way, wherever you live in the country, you may want to check out my webinar that I offer for free on my YouTube channel, which is all about emergency preparedness for caregivers with older adults who are caring for older adults. And you can check that out, but it talks about what you need to be prepared for if you can. In many of these instances, a lot of people didn't have any prior warning for evacuation or anything. They just, basically ran out into their cars with, the the shirt on their back and the shoes on their feet, and that was it. But I want to just talk about now that we start to take a look at how do we rebuild. And of course, this happened too with Hurricane Helene and Milton that hit North Carolina and Florida and others so desperately last fall. How do you start to rebuild, and how do you get past this solastalgia that maybe your older loved one is feeling? Because it also happens when there is a natural disaster and the home that they've lived in forever is now gone. And there are many stories here in Southern California. I've been hearing about 80-year-olds who have lived in their homes, for instance, in the Altadena, Pasadena area that was hit so hard, and also the Palisades, Pacific Palisades area. And they're in their 80s. They've lived in their homes for more than 60 years. It's going to take years to get permits and rebuild and have the buildings and businesses come back. If you're in your 80s, you don't have that long of a runway. We don't think about that enough, the devastation to someone's life at the end of their life. To have something like this happen is beyond. I mean, I want to cry right now thinking about it, because it's beyond what any of us, I think, could ever imagine. And so, what are some of the things that can help family caregivers? That's in this article that I wrote. So I'm going to have a link to that on my episode guide page. You can read through that if you feel like your loved one is kind of suffering maybe from this solastalgia. And what we do is we use solophilia, very close to that word biophilia, which I love, which is love of nature, love of life. And solophilia is love of place. And so bringing nature back helps us to even just the visual connection with our brain. When we see plants, when we see trees, when we see flowers, it reminds our brain that we will survive because there's a food source. That's what that tells the brain. But also it reminds us to thrive. And even something as simple as a small plant can help a loved one who maybe has gone through devastation. I don't want to minimize this by any means. I don't want to say, oh, houseplants will solve all the problems. No, of course not. But think about making sure that we are connecting our loved ones and ourselves back to the nature that helps us thrive. Because when you look out across these images that we've been seeing on the news with the absolute devastation, the fires, the burn, it's charred, there is no green. There are no beautiful colors of flowers. It's just all black and gray and brown. And we need to remind ourselves to, get hope, and hopefully get back to thriving and surviving no matter what age we are. So I'm going to have a couple of those links: the webinar on emergencies, and also the solastalgia, and the self care video that I did just on air care, which is really important for us to think about. And again, I just want to do a shout out, and my heart goes out to all of the people who were affected by these horrific fires, and particularly my friends who have stayed so strong, SoCalStrong, as we say. And even though we do get hit by these natural disasters, there are resources that can help us. We'll have some links on our episode guide page about that. And we can't replace, but we can rebuild. So, we're here for you. We love you. And thank you for listening to this podcast, our first episode of season 5. Thank you for joining us on this episode. A reminder, you can find more information in my book, Me Time Monday, The Weekly Wellness Plan to Find Balance and Joy for a Busy Life, or visit MeTimeMonday.com or CaregivingClub.com. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Caregiving Club on Air. Please hit the subscribe button. To listen to us on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, SiriusXM, iHeartRadio, Pandora, as well as other listening channels. Check out all the resources and article links on our episode guide page at caregivingclub.com. Just hit the podcast tab at the top and email us with comments and questions at podcast@caregivingclub.com. Thank you again for listening, and take care and stay well.